Imagine if you are somebody who doesn't get a chance to eat very much. Maybe you're on a budget, and so you have to watch what you're buying and what you're eating. Like many people are like that. You're going to be really grateful when you actually have something good to eat, right? And maybe you'll eat 3 times a day. Maybe you won't. But every time you have food, you'll be appreciative, and you'll think about the value of what you're actually eating. Now, let me give you a different scenario. You're a kid thrown into a candy store. All right. Now you're surrounded by everything. And someone tells you, go ahead. There's no limit. Get anything you want. Right. So you're going to go first. You're going to be excited. You're going to dive in and start eating everything. But pretty soon you're confused. You don't know what to do anymore because you're just surrounded by overage. And I think this is true on the behavioral level, but it's also true on the cellular level. When we actually are surrounded with overabundance, it confuses the system in our body. It can overwhelm our metabolism. And so what we want to do when you ask, oh, how do you eat? When do you eat? What do you eat? One of the things we want to do is to be moderate. Don't overeat. That's easy. Quit the clean plate club. All right. Don't pile on to your plate. You're not preparing for hibernation. So you want to actually be careful that you are taking just the right amount. Stop eating when you're 80% full. There's a Japanese saying called hara hachi banmi. And it basically means, if you eat slowly and you feel like you're satisfied but not full, push the plate away. You're not a member of the Clean Plate Club anymore. You're fine. Thank your host. Thank whoever cooked the meal, and be grateful that you had it. You don't need to keep on eating. That's the whole thing. All right. You can just stop. That's the sort of like how to eat. When to eat. Look, remember I told you when you are actually not eating, for example, sleeping, what actually happens is that your insulin levels are down when you're not eating. Your metabolism switches gears to fuel burning mode. So when you're sleeping, you're also not eating, which is also called fasting. When we get up in the morning, we're breaking our fast, which is why we call it breakfast. Break fast. When you're not eating, your body is in fuel burning mode, burning down extra energy in those fat cells that got stored up. Remember? So the longer you don't eat, the more energy, excess fat you can burn, and it draws it first from visceral fat. Now, this is sort of like a when to eat. If, for example, you sleep for 8 hours a day, and I've talked about this with many people, you should try to sleep 8 hours a day. That's best for your health. Let's say you sleep from 11 to 7. If you eat dinner the night before, let's say it's 7 o'clock, and the time isn't so, the exact hour time is less important than the concept. You eat dinners at 7, you finish at 8, put your dishes away. Don't eat a late night snack. No midnight snack, no noshing. Don't wait for your dessert to eat later. So many of us were trained over time to have this habit of finishing dinner and just eating continuously, maybe out through the night or definitely before sleeping, eating something. Look, every time you put your dishes away and then you're still snacking, your insulin's going up. Now you're cutting into the time. You want to actually get more fat burning time. This is the how to eat. Stop when you put your dishes away. Don't eat anything else. And now let's say you go to bed, you eat at 7, you put your dishes away at 8, you go to bed at 11. You've just gained 3 extra hours of fat burning time. How awesome is that? And it's very easy to retrain yourself to having, you're not going to, believe me, you're not going to perish in those 3 hours. And then what I do myself is I keep track of this. So I get 3 hours before bed. I get my 8 hours of sleep. In the morning when I get up, I don't immediately rush off and eat breakfast like when I was a kid. I take my time to get ready, to get showered, to change, get dressed. And then I might go out for a walk, or I might read a book, or I might check my email or something. And I'm not eating yet. I usually wait for an hour after I get up before I eat anything. Maybe even longer sometimes. Like this morning, I didn't eat for a couple hours after I got up. Guess what? I just gained 1 or 2 extra hours of fuel burning. Do the math. 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 3 hours. 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock, 8 hours. That's 11 hours. Now you give yourself 1 extra hour in that morning. It's 12 hours. There's 24 hours in a day. And now you have spent half the day allowing your hardwired metabolism to be in fuel and fat burning mode. How good and how easy is that?
You talked about that 3 hours before bed, and I totally agree. For people that are new to intermittent fasting, I think that's the best start for people. for two reasons. One being the one that you said, where you get that 3 hours of fat burning added to when you're sleeping. Two is that you're going to sleep a lot better that way too. You don't want to be consuming food and spiking your blood glucose and trying to digest while you're sleeping, which ties back into everything we're talking about today, where sleep is part of healing our metabolism. So everything's intertwined, and there's a couple different benefits there from cutting off eating after dinner.
And I'll tell you one more thing. They've actually studied this late night eating, food late night. So, we get extra glucose, high levels of insulin. Just you said, it's not so good for our metabolism. But guess what? We're also feeding our gut microbiome. And studies have shown when you eat late at night, like snacking late at night, like midnight snack, all right, what happens, you're feeding our gut bacteria. Our gut bacteria have, believe it or not, a circadian clock. They know what time it is, and they know very well that when it's time to get ready for bed, they shouldn't be fed. When they are fed, your gut bacteria are fed late at night, they have trouble digesting and metabolizing the food that they're eating to create their short-chain fatty acids, which, by the way, they normally do to lower inflammation. So when you eat late at night and you disrupt the circadian cycle of your gut bacteria, they don't make the same degree of short-chain fatty acids. And guess what? Inflammation rises as well. So not only are you not getting a good night's sleep, your inflammation in your body is rising as well. And on top of that, your gut bacteria is getting confused. Like, this is, by the way, why shift workers often have difficulty with their metabolism.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how do you feel about people? Because a lot of people, the nature of our conversation, are going to come here wanting to lose a few pounds. How do you feel about people pushing that eating window, or narrowing it, I should say, if weight loss is part of their goals right now? And obviously, I'll caveat that by saying you don't want to go and all of a sudden start intermittent fasting for 16 hours a day if this is new to you and you have a higher carb diet, because it's going to be an absolute nightmare. But for somebody to build up over time and use fasting as a tool, especially in the beginning when they're really trying to ramp up their weight loss.
Yeah. Well, look, this has to do with what your goals are. If you're setting out to try to lose weight and burn fat, okay, and by the way, you want to do this to gain inner health. Vanity, I'm totally cool with vanity. If you feel good by looking good, go for it. But what I am concerned about is really, as a doctor and as a scientist, how do we actually gain inner health? If you're good on the inside, by the way, you're going to look better on the outside, no matter what. It's just that if you only work on the outside, but you're really kind of having problems on the inside, that's just cosmetics, and inside could have a real problem. So what I always tell people is that if your goal is to actually lose weight, intermittent fasting, it's a trend, but it's really not something that was invented in order to create a trend. It's the most natural thing we do. Just eat. We intermittently eat, and we intermittently don't eat. So we fast and we don't fast. So, but research has shown if you actually go 12 and 12, 12 eating, 12 not eating, as I told you, totally fine. In fact, studies have shown that you can lose about 10 pounds. By intermittent fasting, like that, 12 and 12. If you want to lose more, you gotta up your fasting period. You can ramp it up almost 30% if you actually then crank it up to 16 hours of fasting. So 16 hours of fasting is basically like going to bed the same time I told you. But remember, I told you got 12 hours if you don't eat breakfast until 8. Now you got to gain an extra 4 hours. So you got to not eat. So you skip breakfast and don't eat till lunch the next day. You'll get your 16 hours. Now, research has shown if you do that, and yes, you're giving your body extra fat burning time, you will lose extra weight, but you'll actually start losing weight just with a very reasonable 12 hours. And that's really the message I want to send. Yes, you can push it. You can actually go 16 fasting, 8 eating, but 12 fasting and 12 eating also works. If you want to fast even longer, people have fasted 18 hours. People have fasted the whole day. Yes, you will burn more body fat. Now, here's the thing that's important to understand. The difference between metabolic fasting, which we're talking about with intermittent fasting, 12 and 12, easy way to do it. That's a nice area to start and aim at. And if you can maintain that your whole life, you're going to be actually in pretty good shape. You'll be in a good zone. But don't forget, intermittent fasting is a continuum. It's a scale all the way to starvation. All right. If you got wrecked on a desert island with no food, yeah, you'd be intermittently fasting too. But eventually you would actually be starving. And when you starve and you overfast, the problem is that you can actually cut into your muscle mass and you'll start to destroy your muscle mass. What's worse than actually gaining body fat is gaining body fat while you're losing muscle mass. So got to be really careful about this stuff. And I think that just reasonable approaches for reasonable people usually is something that people can stick with, and that's how you get better health.
I'm excited to share with you my favorite magnesium supplement, Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. Each capsule contains 7 different forms of magnesium, and each type plays a critical role in how your body functions. Click the link in the description to save 10% off your order. I know you're going to love Magnesium Breakthrough as much as I do. And now back to the show. You talked about the aspect of somebody's eating at night, the impact on the gut microbiome being, less than healthy. What happens when people start pushing fast a little bit longer in relation to the microbiome? So if people are doing 16-hour fasts, 24-hour fasts, and giving that microbiome a break, obviously no food's coming into the system during that period to feed them, how do they respond?
So, again, this continuum. If you fast for an extraordinarily long period of time till you're starving, your bacteria are actually going to start dying as well. They're not being fed. They need food. It's like not feeding your goldfish, your tank for a long time. So that's the extreme. Reel it back, okay? And now what's amazing is actually when you give your gut bacteria a break, proper break, but when you're eating, you're eating healthy things. During the fasting time, your bacteria reboot themselves. That's really quite amazing. They reboot themselves by first getting rid of bad actors. It's like purging the neighborhood of the crack dealers. All right. And our gut bacteria, 39 trillion, they've got a whole variety. It's a very diverse ecosystem. But the problem that we have when we suffer from bad gut health is really we've got a few bad bacteria that are growing. Some of these bacteria, when they overgrow, can actually be even lethal if we don't watch out, like C. diff and Pseudomonas, other types of bacteria that we see in the hospital as doctors. But generally speaking, when we give our gut bacteria a break so that they're not overly taxed all the time with food, then they can actually reboot themselves. When they reboot, they're also lowering inflammation more effectively. They're supporting your immune system. They help your immune system reboot as well. And they also participate in all kinds of other healing functions that are also beneficial as well. So again, this is all just leveraging the systems that are already present in our body. We haven't even talked about what foods you should eat or can eat to improve your metabolism. This is just playing around with your operating system.
We're going to get to those foods, but before we do, let's really hash out this when you eat piece. And the last area I want to dive into within that is eating during our specific eating window, which is going to be different depending on the person and what their health goals are. But say somebody is having a later breakfast like you and stopping their meals at dinner. Are you a fan of having snacks during that eating window? And when I say snacks, I want to caveat that as well. I'm not talking about sugar and processed foods. If you're getting hungry in between your breakfast and lunch, are you going to have an apple and some nut butter and whatever a healthy snack is to you? How do you feel about that?
I feel totally fine with that, with the understanding that you got to realize when you snack, because you are listening to your body and your body's telling you the fuel tank is running a little low, time to fill up with a little bit of gas, and you pick the right foods to snack on. Could be nut, it could be tree nuts, it could be some other healthy piece of fruit or whatever. That's actually an okay thing. Again, when you're snacking, if you don't overeat and you choose the right snacks. But so many of us actually snack out of habit. Well, I'm just sitting at my desk and I'm working and I'm just going to reach over there and grab that, whatever. If it's a chocolate bar, filled with nougat and all kinds of other, fructose and all kinds of other artificial things, preservatives in it, that's not a good choice. And then you're once, and our brain's addicted to sugar. Oh, now we're going to eat another one. Now we're going to eat another one. It's like the proverbial, how are you going to clean up all that Halloween candy you collected when you were a kid? All right. I think that snacking is one of those things where if you listen to your body and you need a little more fuel, that's perfectly fine. Choose the right fuel. High quality fuel is what you would want to put in your car. If you're somebody who takes care of your car well, you have a choice at the filling station, at a gas station, to choose what kind of fuel you want to put in. Want to put the cheap stuff in? It'll be fine, for once in a while. But if all you do is put the cheapest quality fuel in your car, I guarantee you, your car's not going to run as well or as long as somebody who really takes good care of their car and tries to put high quality fuel. Snacking with high quality fuel is very important for your overall health, and not over snacking, meaning you're not overeating even when you're snacking. By the way, this is the whole aspect of really listening to your body so that you understand what your needs are, as opposed to falling into a habit where then you're mindlessly eating. If you're mindfully eating connected to your body, it's a lot safer.
And this ties into the snacking piece. Do you feel like people ever, and the insulin that we were talking about before, do you feel like during that eating window, whether somebody is snacking or not, they get into fat burning mode? Because we know overnight with the fast, insulin's going to come down and we're going to go into fat burning. And the longer we do that, the longer we're going to spend in there and burn more fat. But what I'm getting at here is the nuances within the eating window. If somebody is not going to snack and say they have a few hours in between meals, are they actually going to get into fat burning? And then I would assume if they are snacking, they're going to, as long as there's some carbohydrate in there, they're going to bring the insulin up and they're going to go into building and not burning.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you got it exactly down right. If you're snacking, your insulin's going to go up, your metabolism is going to switch back into fuel storing mode. But this is all a matter of degree. If you snack and keep eating and are munching continuously, and I'm not just talking about like tree nuts, like, a thing of walnuts or pecans or almonds, or cashews. I'm talking about the bag of chips, or the thing of candy where you're just mindlessly eating and snacking. Yeah, you're going to really raise your insulin high. I think a little mild snacking, you'll flip your body away from fuel burning mode. So if you want to be disciplined about it, again, this is a matter of what your goals are. If you are really trying to empower yourself to lose as much weight, fight as much body fat, improve your metabolism as much as possible, here's basically what it is. Listen to your body. Try not to snack. Give yourself as much fuel burning time as possible. And by the way, listen to your body, meaning that if you don't snack and you are really hungry, be very careful, because snacking a little bit is okay. It's a lot better to raise your insulin a little bit during snacking than it is to feel ravenous at your next meal and then fall into that, oh my gosh, I'm hungry, and start to stuff your face and overflow your fuel tanks. And so, again, everyone is different. I mean, this is the other thing to really realize. And I read about this in my book, Eat to Beat Your Diet. It's really about what works for you, personalization. Every individual is unique and different. Your needs are different than my needs, are different than the person who's watching this needs. We all need to understand there's some hardwiring and programming that works for us. We have to just tweak it a little bit so that we can get what we need out of it without having to slavishly follow somebody else's rules.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
60 can be the new 20 if you follow your metabolism. And it's the problem of excess body fat that actually shuts down, sits on top of our metabolism. So it's not that a slow metabolism causes us to grow body fat and gain weight.